Do your kids know the history of that first Thanksgiving? Hello, this is Cathy Reichel with tips for living well together to build strong families and strong people. Today's topic is the first Thanksgiving. Here's a bit of history summarizing some of the wonderful research from The Light and the Glory by Peter Marshall and David Manuel. Chances are your kids will not learn this history in school. In the early 1600s, two groups, the Puritans and the Separatists, spoke out against the corruption of the Church of England. The Puritans boldly criticized the corruption, but they respected canonical authority, and so they could be denied any position of authority and ignored. The Separatists, however, believed that Christ was the only head of the church, and so, their critics scornfully said, they would reduce worship to primitive preaching, teaching, singing, and free prayer, which would do away with 16 centuries of established liturgical tradition. These separatists spoke powerfully about a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and their critics hissed, if tolerated, little churches could pop up anywhere, totally outside the control of the bishops. Queen Elizabeth had mostly left them alone, but King James I gave the bishops permission to spy on, lay huge church taxes on, and even imprison separatists. They took asylum in Leyden, Holland, where as poor immigrants, they worked 12 to 15 hours a day just to survive. Soon they realized they were so beaten down they would be left unable to serve God as they were committed to do. They were aging prematurely, and it was especially hard on their children, who were put to work long hours at an early age. Many children were being lured away from the faith by the attraction of the world around them. After much prayer, they mustered the courage and the means to sail to America. They were aware of the starving time and the 50% fatality rate of the Jamestown settlers, and of the horror stories of the savagery of some of the Indian tribes. But William Bradford, soon to be the governor of the new colony, wrote in his journal, "All great and honorable actions are accompanied with great difficulties and must be enterprised and overcome with answerable courage." Their pastor, John Robinson, also wrote, God was calling them to a new Jerusalem, to build his temple anew, with themselves as its stones. They set sail on August 5th, 1620, but had to turn back twice because of problems with one of the ships, the Speedwell, losing precious time and food supplies. Finally, they combined cargo and passengers onto the Mayflower and left the Speedwell and those who had become faint-hearted behind. For 7 weeks, 102 brave pilgrims endured continuous storms, uncooked, soggy food, unbelievably unsanitary conditions in a dark, lantern-lit cabin area the size of a volleyball court. They prayed and encouraged each other through their despair, and eventually profoundly impressed their very crass ship crew. On November 9th, 1620, they spotted land. Cold, barren, windswept land with no houses, hotels, or friends to welcome them. They prayed and gave thanks to God. By the second winter at Plymouth, half of them had died, but they gave God thanks for several miracles that enabled them to survive what they knew to be Satan's attempts to destroy them and the truth of the gospel they intended to live and spread on this new, free continent. One of these miracles was an Indian, Squanto, who had been taken captive as a slave 15 years before, and through an amazing sequence of events, had learned English and returned to America to find that all of his tribe had died in a plague. William Bradford wrote that Squanto was a special instrument sent from God for their good, beyond their expectation. Squanto taught them to fish, hunt, and raise successful crops in their new land. The day before the declared Thanksgiving Day, Chief Massasoit arrived with 90 braves. The Pilgrims at first feared their winter store of food would be devoured, but soon learned the Indians had brought a great store of their own, of dressed deer and fat turkeys. At that first Thanksgiving, with abundant crops and wonderful fellowship with the Indians, they cooked together, had athletic contests, and celebrated. They were strong. They continued to believe that God had a purpose for their lives, even though there were setbacks and suffering all along the way. They were big people. Their believing and work forged this nation. Today, some people have become depressed and discouraged because they haven't been able to fulfill their dreams. But we can be big people too. We don't have to allow our abundance and ease to make us weak and foolish. Revisiting this time in our history can help us gain perspective and be bigger. I encourage your family to take some time this Thanksgiving to ponder God's goodness and truly give Him your heartfelt thanks for all He's given you. You'll be happier if you do. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the history of that first Thanksgiving and its impact on the success of our country. Leave me a comment. Please like and share this video and click subscribe on YouTube for more tools to help your family thrive. This is Cathy Reichel. Thanks for tuning in.